It's such a joy and privilege to join all my brothers and sisters in this very exciting ongoing series from the Gospel of Mark. I thank God for all the brothers and sisters for regularly attending or participating in the group discussions and assignments. Uh, Actually, I failed to put the assignment at the right time. I was a little late. Even then, I saw a few responses. Praise God for all of those. And we have reached, like Pastor Justin just told us, we have reached the heart of the gospel. We were having a very exciting journey. We are like in a language which we can use. We are in mid-flight. We took off and we will land very soon when we reach last chapter of the gospel. Right now, we are at the center and the heart of the gospel. We have already known that the Gospel of Mark can be understood in uh, different ways in different divisions, but especially we can understand the Gospel of Mark in three acts. The first act taking place in Galilee, that is from chapter 1 onwards. It goes up to chapter 8, verse 21. And from 8:22 to 10:52, we have the second act, the act of discipleship on the way to Jerusalem. And from chapter 11 towards to the end of the book, we are reaching Jerusalem. Like 11:1, it says, as they approach Jerusalem. So act 3 in Jerusalem. First act or first segment in Galilee, second segment on the way, on this journey, the third segment in Jerusalem. And we are reaching the close of the second section, and we are reaching to the key of the Gospel of Mark, the heart of the Gospel of Mark. We are going to look at the third passion prediction that Jesus made along this journey. Actually, we have looked at the journey to Jerusalem as the cross and discipleship. And I believe you are with this study throughout, and you know the way we are trying to look at this text, the way Mark is placing these things. Especially, I'll just remind you, we have been already told, I think, a couple of times before, that this section begins with the healing of a blind man and ends with the healing of another blind man. So, two physically blind people are delivered, and in the middle, we have a bunch of people who will never spiritually open their eyes, who are spiritually blinded, and people who are not able to comprehend, to understand what Jesus is trying to communicate. So, brothers and sisters, let's look into this text with a very prayerful heart. Uh, Due to my some engagements, I have not been able to make slides as such, but I will give you the main points and I will repeat them as much as I can, so you can jot them down or rehear it. So we have seen two passion predictions already. In chapter 8, we saw that. Chapter 8, verses 31, we saw Jesus in the Philippi of Caesarea, that place. Jesus is saying the first passion prediction. And we have seen in chapter 9, you may have noted that, chapter 9, verses 31. I'm sorry. Sorry, I made a mistake. The first passion prediction is in chapter 8, verses 31. And the second passion prediction is in 9:31. And today we are going to look at the third passion prediction, that is in 10:33. So this evening, let me begin by rewording this entire thing, because all scholars, all commentators, everyone who has written anything or spoken anything about Mark calls this as passion predictions. And it is quite appropriate, it is accurate, to the point. But while reading and studying this text, I felt, you can agree with me and you can choose to disagree with me, but I feel a more better way to put it would be, it is a passion prediction, it is three passion predictions. But when I read this passion prediction, especially the third passion prediction, I see the whole of gospel encapsulated, given in a, like what do you say, in a capsule form. I would call it, rather, I would call it gospel prediction. The great event which gospel narrates, on which the entire gospel, on which the entire Christian faith stands. I will call it gospel prediction. I don't know if anyone has called it like that before me, but this is what that came to my mind today while meditating this text. Yes, this is the passion prediction. Yes, this is something that happened in the life of Jesus. But what is this actually? Who is the Son of Man? What is his death all about? It is nothing but the gospel, the good news that delivers mankind. And let me take you to the first verse, that is the first verse of today's text, before giving a title to this message. Verse 32. They were on the road going up to Jerusalem, and Jesus was walking on ahead of them. And they were amazed. And we can really connect it with what we meditated last week. The out of the world statements of Jesus regarding discipleship, regarding true positions, which we meditated very beautifully last week. So I believe reminiscent and recollecting what Jesus has already told, they were amazed, and those who followed were fearful. So there are three categories of people. The one walking ahead, the one who is really going. I mean, just imagine, if you know, I mean, when you live in more, I know, not in an urban setting, and more in a rural setting, people go to places. Like they want to go to meet someone, or they are in a hurry, they want to go to a government office or something like that. And it's your neighbor. The person is walking on the road, and you call them. Hey, brother, hey, sister, tell me where you're going. Many times I have seen that they don't even wait to answer. They're so caught up on the journey they are taking. They're so caught up on getting to the place where they want to go. They won't mind, even if their best friend calls them, even if their 40-year neighbor, for 40 years they're living together, but even that neighbor will call. In Kerala, no answers, just walking, just rushing somewhere. And sometimes people get offended, but no point in getting offended. That person is so focused on the journey. So that is what I see here. Jesus walking on ahead of them. Not because Jesus was a brisk walker or something. It shows the intentionality of Jesus. It is when I read this, I'm directly transported to Luke 9:51. I hope you know the verse. I'm not asking you to turn the pages. Jesus resolutely set his face to go to Jerusalem. See, that resoluteness, that intentionality, that determination, he set his face like a flint. That is what the prophet Isaiah says. You cannot move him. You cannot turn him. And this continues in Paul also when he is going to Jerusalem. So he's, kind of reenacting the story of Jesus. Even when Agabus comes and tells, you will be bound. He says, I'm ready to die. See the parallels. See the determination. Based on this determination, let me ask you, where is Jesus going? Is he going on a joyride? Is he going to meet some old friends? Or is he going for just a feast to attend the feast? The next verse is going to tell us again and again, the third time we are going to listen to the intention and determination of this journey. Behold, we are going up to Jerusalem, and the Son of Man will be delivered to the chief priests and the scribes, and they will condemn him to death. Jesus is walking to his death. I would title this message as the death march of the gospel. You won't ever think that this could be a title for this message or this text. But when I'm reading these verses, the verse is forcing me to title like this. The text, the context, the narrative, the flow, and what is happening here is forcing me to call this text as the death march of the gospel. Jesus is so determined. He's not bothered about the disciples. He's not bothered who is behind the disciples. He is set. He is determined. His intention is crystal clear. You cannot turn him. You cannot dissuade him. You cannot turn him back. He's on the way to Jerusalem, or to put it in simple words, he's on the way to his own death, knowing it all, not walking into the unknown like we are walking, not uncertain about what is going to happen, very certain that he is going to die. Yes, I agree. The resurrection lies beyond the grave. I agree. But Jesus is walking to his death. And this is not a, what do you say, the kind of victory parade or a, what do you say, a kind of a triumphal, there is a triumphal entry. Yeah, all Christians celebrated that last Sunday. But this is more than a triumphal entry. This is a death march. Right now, this is really a death march. Jesus walking ahead, they were amazed. And those who followed, can be understood either as pilgrims to the feast in Jerusalem or the crowd that keeps following Jesus. Anyways, so one group is amazed. They're shocked. What is Jesus saying? They're amazed, they're astonished. But another group is fearful. Fear is taking hold of them. Where is he going? What is going to happen? I believe the disciples were not fearful because their later requests, their earlier conversations all point out the fact that they have no grip on reality. I think the crowd is a little more in the know. They're fearful. The pilgrims are fearful. Why is this man walking so much ahead? Why is he so set on going to Jerusalem? They don't know. They haven't heard the predictions. Neither are they going to hear the next verse. And let's read on, verse 32, the last part. And again, he took the 12 aside and began to tell them what was going to happen to him. See, Jesus is intentional and determined to go to Jerusalem. At the same time, he's determined and he's intentional to make sure that the disciples understand the weight of what is going to happen. That is what this prediction is all about. This prediction is very detailed compared to the past two predictions. And I won't try to get into the words and try to differentiate and show what are the new additions. But when we read this verse, this prediction, I call it gospel prediction because here we see the entire truth of the gospel narrated in two verses. Jesus took them aside, and what is he saying? Behold, we are going up to Jerusalem, and the Son of Man will be delivered to the chief priests and the scribes, and they will condemn him to death and will hand him over to the Gentiles. Verse 34 is an explanation of the death, of the condemning. They will mock him, spit him, scourge him, and kill him. And 3 days later, he will rise again. So there is the passion, the suffering, the death, which is celebrated by Christians, or kind of, what do you say? More than celebrate, I don't know what is the right word. Christians try to remember it maybe, or they have a tradition called Good Friday, most of the time lost and misplaced from its meaning, but it's good. I believe it does have a place in a person who really wants to think and meditate on the death and resurrection of Jesus, which should be a daily reality for a Christian, but a day set aside won't do any harm. This is not a place to have any discussion on that. Still, I'm saying that in passing. Okay. So this mocking, spitting, scourging, killing is actually a short, or a kind of a shorthand of what is going to be narrated in chapter 15. When we come to chapter 15, the narration, when we read chapter 15, verses 1 to 15, we see the Son of Man, we see the Son of Man being delivered to the Gentiles, delivered to the chief priests, delivered to the Gentiles. Then verses 16 to 21, we see him mocked, scourged. Verse 22 onwards, we see him crucified. So the ending of 14, the whole chapter 15, the resurrection in chapter 16, all of that is brought together in one prediction. We are studying Mark's account of the life of Jesus. So we call it the Gospel of Mark. And here we are seeing the gospel prediction. The good news is being predicted. And when we study the Bible, good news predictions, gospel predictions don't start here. It starts from the first book of the Bible. The good news has been predicted from the beginning. When we come to Genesis chapter 3:15, it's all usually called proto-evangelium, or the first gospel, the first good news. The son, the seed of the woman will crush the head of the serpent. So throughout the Old Testament, throughout the Gospels, before the final week of Jesus, we see pointers to this event, because this event determines the course of all human history and the destiny of all mankind. This one event, this one description determines the course of human history and the destiny of all humans born on planet Earth. This is such important, such a serious thing. And here, Jesus is sobering up, is soberly narrating what is going to happen. This is gospel prediction. Once he told, they didn't understand. Second time he told, they didn't understand. And they messed it up each time after each passion prediction. Third time again he's saying. Why? Because in this content, in this prediction, lies the destiny of all mankind. This is the gospel. This is what in 1 Corinthians 15:3 onwards, Paul says, what I received of first importance, I hand over to you. Christ died according to the scriptures, was buried, raised up according to the scriptures. See, this is the gospel. That is gospel which is proclaimed. Here, gospel is predicted. Paul proclaimed the gospel, the good news that took place. I won't go in much detail because we had in the beginning itself sessions dedicated to the gospel. Gospel means good news. News is not something that will happen. Good news is not good advice. Good advice. I'll just say it in one word. A man is about to be hanged and he is facing his death sentence within a week. You get to see that man. What will you tell him? Be a good person. Don't drink, don't smoke. That is good advice. Good advice will never help a person on death row. That is something he ought to do. And whether he does or not, he is going to die. What is good news? Good news is not good advice. Good news is not something that is about to happen. Good news is something that has already happened. Good news is not something that the hearer has to do or not do. Good news is something that has been done. And what has been done has affected the destiny of every man. It needs to be received by faith. And Jesus, unrelenting, unrelentless, repetitive, speaking forth of this passion prediction or gospel prediction tells us something. It doesn't depend on the receptivity of hearers. Gospel is a message that needs to be sounded and resounded and affirmed and reaffirmed and told and retold as long as we live. Once, one man of God, Jerry Bridges, has told a quote that always strikes me. Preach the gospel to yourselves every day. Let me repeat. Preach the gospel to yourself every day. Why? In the message of the gospel lies what God has already done in history so that we will be delivered from the clutches of sin. Here the gospel is predicted. When we come to verse 45, the gospel purpose is given. Why the Son of Man must be handed over? Why the Son of Man must be mocked? Why the Son of Man must be scourged? Why the Son of Man must be put to death? Why the Son of Man must be raised? Gospel is predicted here, but the gospel purpose is given in verse 45. The last part. to give his life as a ransom for many. We'll come to that, but let me just connect this. I believe, even if you don't have any other verses in the Gospel of Mark, this prediction and this mission statement of Jesus is enough to tell the whole gospel message to any person, because gospel is so powerful. Gospel is so powerful that it can change lives, and this gospel prediction ought to impact the disciples. Rather, we see things are going in a different trajectory. In verses 32, we see the resoluteness of Jesus. Jesus is heading, it's a death march, and he is predicting the death in 30, 33 and 34. But from 35 onwards, especially till verse 40, we see a very saddening reality. Gospel is not understood. Gospel is, in these verses, the gospel is missed. The essence of the message is lost. The prediction is falling on deaf ears. And the third passion prediction also seems a futile effort on the part of Jesus. Why? Read verse 35. James and John, the two sons of Zebedee, came up to Jesus saying, "Teacher, we want you to do for us whatever we ask you." And verse 36, and he said to them, "What do you want me to do for you?" When you read verse 36, don't forget to read verse 51. That is not today's text. There is another man coming to Jesus, and the words of Jesus are verbatim, same words. And answering him, Jesus said, "What do you want me to do for you?" See, anyone who comes to Jesus, even this evening, I know it for sure. If you go to Jesus this evening, he's going to ask you the same question. To the blind Bartimaeus, he asked the same question. To the petitioning sons of Zebedee, he asked the same question. What do you want me to do for you? And let me tell you, your answer to this question will reveal how much of the gospel you have understood. Your answer to this question will reveal how much the gospel has impacted and transformed your life. Just for a moment, take a pause. And I'm not asking you to tell me, but tell to yourself, what would be your answer to this question of Jesus? For a moment, just think. Jesus is asking you the same question. What do you want me to do for you? What will be your reply tonight? I know none of your replies will be the same, but still, what will be your petition? I call this verses from 35 to 40 gospel-less petition. We saw the gospel prediction in 32, 33, 34. From 35, we are seeing a gospel-less petition. A petition which has nothing to do with the gospel, which comes from lips of people who are yet to grasp the depth and the profundity of the gospel. See, verse 37. They said to him, "Grant that we may sit one on your right and one on your left in your glory." When we look in Matthew's Gospel, chapter 20 to 28, we have the same incident, but there is a apparent contradiction, because there the mother of the sons of Zebedee is asking the question. So some people who want to find fault with the Bible, they say these two events are totally contradicting each other. But read the account of Matthew, you will understand that there, of course, it's the mothers of the sons asking, but the sons are present, the sons are kneeling down. I won't take you there. And let me tell you something that I understood. Maybe it's an assumption. We understood that this gospel is written from the pen of Mark, but there is a narrator behind the scenes. There is an eyewitness. Who is the eyewitness? Peter. And who is Peter? Peter is a person who is always on spotlight. Throughout the Gospels, you will see Peter is always centerpiece, right and center. And even if Peter is mentioned with other disciples, there is an inner circle. I hope you know the inner circle. Who are the inner circle? Peter, James, and John. So it seems, and in all probability, these two brothers are coming and asking Jesus. We know that we are your inner circle. There is Peter, there is John, there is James. We three are your inner circle right now. But when you get the kingdom, we want you to again, subtract the inner circle. In the coming kingdom, we want to be the inner circle. In essence, we want you to throw Peter out of the inner circle. How can Peter forget that request? He made sure that it is in the gospel. We can take it in a funny or a humorous way, but still, this incident is in a sense, it is a jab at Peter, who is always at the front of every conversation, every interaction, every mess up. And these two people are saying, the earthly inner circle is okay, but when the heavenly inner circle comes, in the Jewish concept, the most important people are at the center of the banquet. The farther you go from the center, the least important. Those who are sitting in the peripherals of the banquet or of a court, they are the least important. So they are asking, we want the seat of importance. We want to sit at your right and at your left. See, here Jesus is saying, I am on a march. I am intentional. I am journeying to Jerusalem. Not to, assert the Romans, but to die, to be scourged. These words come first time here, not in the earlier two Palestinian predictions. I'm going to be spit upon, to be scourged, to be mocked. And here they are asking, where is our ministerial cabinet berth? We want to be on your right and your left. Maybe their request seems so outright and so on the face. But let me tell you, these people were more kind of sincere, rough and tough fishermen and people who were on the face. They're blunt people. They didn't know the diplomacy we have. Like in English, we call it the snake oil diplomacy. You know to wriggle out of any situation. You know to be diplomatic. You know to make your point without appearing assertive and appearing, as a brute. But these people are rough people. They are fishermen. They don't know to mask their selfishness. We wouldn't have asked. I wouldn't have asked this. Even if I wanted the right chair of Jesus more than the sons of Zebedee, I won't ask, because I am more civilized than them. Their lack of civilization, their lack of, literacy, and their lack of polishing, the rough edges are showing up. I believe people sitting in this Zoom meeting, in this Bible study, in this Mark's meditation, including me, have desires more crude, more ugly than this request. Because we lose sight of the gospel every now and then. We don't care. For us, gospel is an old story, which is just enough to get us a ticket to heaven. And all the way, we want to climb up and make sure our place here on earth and up in the heavens is secure. We are ready to climb on anyone's back. We are ready to do anything to get what we want. We do not live in the light of the gospel. Just as they lost sight of the gospel within few verses, within few minutes, or within few seconds, we always lose sight of the gospel. Look at our prayers. Are our prayers gospel-centered? Are our prayers saturated with the fact that I am the unworthy brute, I am the wretched sinner for whom Christ had to die. He was not a sinner. He was not guilty. He was sinless, but he became my substitute. He lived for my sake and he died in my place. He was handed over by Judas to the Jews and by the Jews to the Gentiles. He was handed over. And thank God I was not there. I would have been party in handing him over, because I don't care for Jesus. I care only for the 30 pieces of silver that can give me the best life now. I don't care where Jesus goes. Maybe I lived with him for 3.5 years. I don't care where is he going, what he's up to. I don't care what is his destiny. I only care for myself. What will happen to me tomorrow? Where will I live? What will people, what is the price tag that I have in society? Do I have the money? Do I have the prestige? Do I have the influence? Do I have what it takes to lift up my head and walk with a broad shoulder in this messed up world? I want to be a cut above the rest. I want to win the rat race. But everyone forgets that there is no winner in the rat race. We all run and we all make a mess of our lives, trying to carve out a space for ourselves. And we forget that there lived a man 2000 years ago. He was not a man, he was God in human flesh. But he lived a life and showed that a life lived without anything to do with the self is the best kind of life. That life is staring at us from every page of the Bible. A life lived for others. A death died for others. The life of Jesus, the selfless life of Jesus, is staring at us from every page of the book, but every petition of us, of ours, is saturated with selfishness. Every prayer is dipped in self-service. It's all about us. We only care for ourselves. We care for others only because it gives us some value or it makes us better. It makes much of us. We do things which may appear selfless, but deep down in our motives, we know without the gospel, we are more ugly, more selfish than these two brothers, these two crude, crass fishermen, uncivilized, who didn't know to mask their selfishness. In their request, I see myself losing the vision of the gospel and asking for things that would please my appetite. Let this request of the Zebedee brothers be not a tale from a narrative from the Gospel of the Mark, but let it be a mirror on our soul, which will expose every bit of selfishness lurking in the deepest corners and the darkest chambers of our heart. Open our eyes. Let the Holy Spirit open our eyes to see how selfish we are. How selfish. Let me ask you. Just think of the most important decisions that you took, maybe the last 1 year or last 5 years, anything. Every day we take different decisions. But just think about the most important decisions that you took the last 5 years of your life. What motivated that decision? Did you take that decision in the light of the gospel, in light of what Jesus did? Or in the words of Paul, constrained by the love of Christ, that one man died for all, so that who live no longer for themselves, but live for the one who died for them. Was that perspective driving you to take the decision? Any decision, be it occupational decision, this is a choice of career, choice of profession, choice of job, choice of life partner, anything. Last 5 years, evaluate your most important decisions. What drove you to that decision? What was your petition to God? Was it something Like in the lines of Peter in 10:28, behold, we have left everything and followed you. What will we get? What will we get? Verse 37, grant that we may sit on the right and on your left in the glory. What can we get out of this? What is our end? What is our end of the bargain? What we will get out of this deal? We left our families, we left our career. Okay, I'm a pastor, I left my promising better life or something that I imagine. I don't know if there is any other life that could be better than serving the Lord, but still, if I'm a fool to assume that there was some better life lying around somewhere else. If I'm asking, what do I get instead of all that I've done? There lies a mirror to our soul. Let's look at the answer of Jesus, verse 38. But Jesus said to them, you do not know what you're asking. Are you able to drink the cup that I drink, or to be baptized with the baptism with which I am baptized? Jesus should be really angry with them, but I see the mercy of Jesus. I see the compassion of Jesus. I see the kindness of the heart of Jesus in these verses. He's seeing their ignorance, their gospel-less petition. And he's saying, you do not know what you're asking. You do not know. You do not know what the kingdom is. Did they understand the gospel? Let me tell you in one word. They knew the gospel. They knew that Jesus is coming in the glory. They knew that the Davidic kingship is going to be fulfilled in Jesus. They knew that Jesus is the promised Messiah. They knew all Old Testament prophecies were pointing to Jesus. They knew the gospel, but it was a half-baked gospel. The other side was full of their own selfish pursuits. One side of the gospel they knew. The other side they didn't know. The other side they filled up with their selfish pursuit. They knew Jesus was the Messiah. They're asking, in your glory. So Jesus is coming in glory. There is a glorious appearance to Jesus. Yeah, they saw a glimpse of the glory in Mount Transfiguration. And they're expecting more. Okay, they know. But that partial knowledge, little knowledge is too dangerous. Little knowledge is too dangerous. Jesus is saying, you don't know what you're asking, because you don't know what is the path to glory. Jesus is putting forth two metaphors. Look at the two metaphors. The metaphor of a cup, the metaphor of baptism. The metaphor of the cup is an Old Testament metaphor we see throughout scriptures. It usually signifies the wrath of God. When we move forward 3 chapters ahead, in chapter 14, we see Jesus praying. You can read that in the Gospel of Mark, chapter 14, verse 36. Abba, Father, all things are possible for you. Remove this cup from me. So, in this verse, the cup denotes the suffering. And more than that, exclusively in the case of Jesus, it denotes the wrath of God on sinners. That cup shows God is angry with sinners. Why is Jesus dying? Why Jesus needs to be scourged? Why Jesus needs to go through this excruciating passion? Why? Because there is a cup that God pours out on the wicked. And these wicked are not just some category in some remote corner of the world. This wicked stands for all sons of Adam. This request of the sons of Zebedee is not just the request of the sons of Zebedee. This request is a son of every son and daughter of Adam seeks for his own, does not seek God. In Romans 1:18 onwards, we see they have suppressed the truth in ungodliness. They know who God was, But they did not give him glory. They did not give him glory. Rather, what they did, without giving God the glory, I am not going to that verse, our time is running forward. You can read Romans 1, 18, 19, 20, 21, and 22. I'm saying those verses. They exchanged the glory of God with corruptible things, with man. Then we read about all those crawling reptiles and all those creatures. But man made the first idol out of himself. He took the glory due to God and he made a new God. Not a reptile, not a crawling creature, not an animal, not a beast. The first idol created by man is man himself. Man created a God out of himself. He is a rule unto himself. From that day onwards, from the first parents' decision to reject the mercy of God, to reject dependence on God, from that point onwards, man exchanged God's glory and he installed himself in the place of God. Everything must revolve around him. Everything must revolve around him. Just like man thought that all the galaxies and all the planets revolve around the earth, until a good man called Copernicus found out that we were wrong all the while. Till then, every one of us thought that, oh, the sun is rising in the east, so the sun is making circles around the earth. In the same way, we think everything must go around us. For example, in our church, I mean, it's tough times, but still, if people get sick, I hear testimonies. They say, last 1 week I was sick and no one visited me. But I am very sad and discouraged. No one called me up. Let me ask you, sister, last 1 year, so many people were sick in your church. Did you call anyone? See, everything must revolve around me. This is the gospel of the self. This is the gospel that makes me my own God, where I need the glory, where I need the attention, where I need everything, where everything must go around me. See what I'm trying to show you. This selfishness is not taught. It is inborn. And God's wrath is to be poured out. And this cup of wrath against sinners, that is what Jesus is about to drink in the dark hours of Calvary. That is what Good Friday is all about. He drank my cup. He drank your cup. The wrath of God was fully satisfied because Jesus drank my cup. We are not any innocent children born into this world, and we are not little angels. I recently heard a man of God saying, you will be offended. He said, explaining the gravity of sin, he told, you think your child is so innocent. He is just a viper in a diaper. Every son of Adam is a man of God called Modi Balkan. He told, every child of Adam is a viper in a diaper. We look at them and we say, so innocent, so lovely. Oh, such a little cute angel. But if they had the ability that we have right now and the mental capacity that they have right now, that is enough. They would have just torn us apart to get what they wanted. That selfishness is inborn. You have a shining watch on your hand. Your child tries to grab it. You don't give it. Again, he tries to grab it. You don't give it. Then what does he do? Then you know all the drama you know. But think, if he was more powerful than you, he would have torn your hand to get that watch. That selfishness is inborn. Every child of Adam is a viper, is a brute. Like the sons of Zebedee, they seek only for themselves. And God is a vengeful God. And the cup of wrath that needed to be poured on us, here is the cup that I drink. Or to be baptized with the baptism which I am to be baptized. Baptism is a symbol, even in Luke's gospel. We read the same symbol, Luke 12:50. I'm going to take a baptism. Jesus is going to plunge into the ocean of human sinfulness. He's going to plunge in and take it all as the ransom of humankind. What I'm saying is not out of the text. I'm trying to explain to you what does it mean when Jesus says his life is a ransom for many. It is a cup. It is a baptism. It is a cup that shows the wrath of God that he took in my place. It is a baptism in which he is relating to me, my sinfulness. In Hindi, there is an old song, Na dekh sakha tu, is paap ke sagar mein, tu ban ke manushya aaya. And you came and dipped yourself in the ocean of human sinfulness. That is the baptism. That is the baptism that Jesus is talking here. We are drowning in the ocean of sin. And he plunged himself in this ocean. He took that baptism, the baptism of death, the baptism of the cross, the baptism by the blood. It is a fiery baptism. When we read Luke 12, 49, 50, Jesus says, I came to kindle a fire. I desire that the fire be come down right now. But I have a baptism to take, a fiery baptism, a bloody baptism, a baptism where he stands as a substitute. But without knowing any of this depth of what Jesus is saying, verse 39, they said to him, we are able, and Jesus said to them, the cup that I drink, you shall drink, and you shall be baptized with the baptism which I am baptized. Remember, Jesus is using the same metaphors. Please note, Jesus is taking the same metaphors and applying it to the disciples. But here, the salvific aspect does not apply. The sons of Zebedee cannot be our substitute. No one on earth can take the wrath of God. No one on earth can plunge into the ocean of sin and remain sinless. We are all sinners. We are already drowning. But here, Jesus is applying the salvific metaphors as an indication of the suffering and, let me tell you, underline it, the martyrdom that lies before these disciples once they understand the gospel in its fullness. See, Jesus is saying, this is salvific, this is redemptive, this is the gospel, this is the plan of the ages. This is what I came to do. There is a cup, there is a baptism. This is the gospel purpose. Not only in verse 45, here we are seeing the gospel purpose. There is a cup in this purpose, there is a baptism in this purpose. But it is not just a purpose, it is also a pattern. The cross is not just an instrument of salvation. It is not just the purpose. There is the purpose. Everything flows from the purpose. Everything is flowing from this redemptive act in history. But it is a pattern. The cross becomes the lifestyle and pattern of all those who embrace this crucified Savior. The cup, the baptism, they're redemptive, they're salvific, they're unique. They can only be done by Jesus. These disciples don't understand. They are saying, we are able. But Jesus is saying, you shall drink. You will be baptized. But not in the sense that I will be baptized. In a different sense. In a different sense means this is a pattern. The gospel pattern will be applied on every disciple, in every disciple's life who chooses to embrace the gospel. But to sit on my right or on my left, this is not mine to give, but it is for those for whom it has been prepared. See, Jesus is saying, you want to sit on the right, that is your petition. On the left, okay, good petition. I cannot grant your petition. But once you understand the gospel, I can give you the power to live out this pattern. And once you start living out this pattern, you will never again have this same petition. I hope I'm getting my point across. Whether you sit on the right or the left, that is up to the Father. I am not here to grant your petition. But this is the pattern. Once you have the power to live this pattern, you will never again ask this petition. That is what Jesus is saying. This petition will be all but forgotten, because now what matters is what Jesus has done has a purpose. At the same time, it is a pattern. In verse 41, the story gets more messier. Hearing this, the 10 began to feel indignant with James and John. I already told who will be the most indignant. No doubt. Peter is going to be. Peter, I believe Peter was really angry at this moment. Peter will be, what do you say, be the gang leader who will be leading this indignation. Because here they are trying to create another inner circle within the inner circle. They are indignant out of this request, but they are forgetting at the core of their beings, they also have such gospel-less petitions. The problem with people like us who have gospel-less petitions, we get angry with other selfishness, but we are blind to our own selfishness. Like these disciples, we read this about the sons of Zebedee and we say, oh, what a fool. They don't understand what Jesus is trying to say. Are they all blockheads? Dear brothers and sisters, we are more selfish than them. And like these 10, neither we do understand. We are blinded to our own selfishness. From 41 onwards, we see the gospel pattern. We saw the gospel prediction. We saw the gospel-less petition. And we saw in the middle some glimpses of the gospel pattern. But from 42 onwards, Jesus is explaining. Jesus is laying bare the gospel pattern. I know the time is running so fast, but here lies the core of the Gospel of Mark. What is the Gospel of Mark all about? It is about the kingdom of God. It is about Jesus calling them to himself. Jesus said to them, you know that those who are recognized as rulers of the Gentiles lord it over them, and their great men exercise authority over them. Verse 42 is a bare bones picture of all the kingdoms of this earth. Every kingdom on this world runs on this principle. Every kingdom, every organization. There are rulers, there are people, and the rulers lord it over them. The great men exercise authority. So there are the stronger people, there are the weaker people. And I'm not going to tell anything about all those applications brought out, irrelevant, senseless applications brought about by all the philosophers. We have all these haves and have-nots, the stronger, weaker, the oppressor, oppressed, and all those categories. I'm not going there. But every system in this world, every kingdom in this world runs on this principle, the principle of domination, the principle of subjugation, the strong dominating, subjugating, and binding and oppressing the weak. That is how the Gentiles rule. That is how the Roman Empire functions. That is how every empire functions. That is how the Jewish leaders function. The Jewish leaders are the stronger ones. This rabbi who has no soldiers, no protection, one night they go and pick him up with all those soldiers. See, the lording, the subjugation. See, the pattern, the power structures, the powers that be. See, this is how it happens all around, everywhere, universal. But Jesus says, but it is not this way among you. This is another kingdom. The gospel pattern is out of this world. It is an upside down kingdom. Or let me correct myself. It is a right side up kingdom. Here the king is not dominating anyone. Here the king is not subjugating anyone. Here the king is not capturing anyone. Here the king is serving the subjects. The king himself dons the role of the servant. The king himself is the one who is serving. And the king says, It is not this way among you, but whoever wishes to become great among you shall be your servant, and whoever wishes to be first among you shall be a slave to all. This evening, dear brothers and sisters, the time is running out. I'm not going into much applications, but let me say it very briefly. There are two systems in this world. One system, man-made system, the system of the Gentiles, the system that began all the way from Genesis, the system of human domination, the system of human kingdoms, the system of a system where power, influence, and authority, money, and everything matters. And there is another system, the system put forth through the life of Jesus. It's not a system, it's a way of life. It is a pattern to live. See, those who wish to become great among you shall be your servant. This shows that this march that Jesus is leading, this death march to Jerusalem is showing what is actually the way of the kingdom. It is not a way to a better life. It is not a way to more power, more prestige. It's not a way to positions. It is not a way to get some seats in Jerusalem, some chairs in Jerusalem to rule. It is not the path to rulership. It is the path of service. It's a path where you embrace death to self. Jesus talked about literal death in verses 33 and 34. Here Jesus is talking about death not in the literal sense, but death in the figurative. What kind of death? A death to self, a death to the desire to be served, a death where you want to take control of others, where you want to dominate over others, a death to self. This is the path of the cross. This is the path of discipleship. Here, every other thing falls by the wayside. Jesus, let's look at verse 45 and then let me sum it up. Verse 45. For even the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve, and to give his life as a ransom for many. Dear brothers and sisters, Jesus is contrasting two ways of life. One way of life which Jesus is living out with his life, one way of life which the disciples are trying to live out, which the disciples are aspiring. Their ambition. What is their ambition? To be served. What is the ambition of the sons of Zebedee? To be served. What is the ambition of the disciples? To be served, to exercise dominion, to rule over others, to make decisions, to have power, to wield power. That is the way of the Gentiles. That is the way that the disciples are trying to walk. They want that. They want that way. They want that way to life, a life where they have power. But Jesus is saying, this is not the way to that kind of life. This is a way to death and a life beyond death. A life brought out through the resurrection of Jesus. A life which is revealed in death to self. Dear brothers and sisters, every day we are confronted with these two choices. The purpose is given in the next verse. Let me put forth one word about that purpose and conclude my words with something more of the pattern. And Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve and to give his life as a ransom to many. This word ransom is very important. We have discussed most of it in the cup and the baptism metaphor, but let me just give you the background. In Leviticus chapter 25, verse 26, verse 51, verse 52, we see this concept where the ransom must be made in the Old Testament. Compensation for crimes or redeeming of property. You lost your property when you went into debt. You give him some amount of money and you get it back. So people have this old question: to whom did Jesus pay the ransom? Some people say Jesus paid the ransom to the devil. Some people say Jesus paid the ransom to God. That is not the point of this verse, to whom Jesus paid. The point of this verse is not to whom it is being paid. The point of this verse is Jesus is paying off our debt of sin by becoming a ransom. He's redeeming us from the curse of sin, from the curse of death. We were bound. We were bound to death. We were bound and slaves to death. We were bound and we were on the way to death. And Jesus is redeeming us. Like God redeemed Israel from the slavery in Exodus. Here Jesus is redeeming his people from the slavery to sin, from the slavery to Gentile systems, from the slavery to self, from the slavery to a self-seeking life. Jesus is redeeming. He's paying the ransom. He is becoming the ransom, not just paying the ransom. He is becoming the ransom. His precious blood, his death, his salvific death, that is the ransom. Ransom from what? In the words of Peter, in 1 Peter chapter 1, we have already looked months back, that Jesus redeemed us from our old traditions and the ways of our forefathers. We were redeemed not by gold or silver, but by the precious blood of Jesus. What is the ways of the Father? What is the age-old tradition? That is there in verse 42. Among the Gentiles, dominating over the weak, oppressing, seeking for power, seeking for position, seeking for prestige, trying to make others serve you. See, that is the ways of the fathers. That is what we have been taught by the world. We have been inbred in the system of this world. Jesus became a ransom, not just to save us from our personal sins. Yes, personal sins are involved, but sins that rule over us and make us bound to a system that is contrary to the kingdom. This is the purpose. This is the ransom. That we no longer be people who seek to be served. We become a community of servants. To make us into a community of servants, Jesus became a ransom. Dear brothers and sisters, you can write down Isaiah 53, 11 and 12. That is the background of this verse. Mark is surely alluding to Isaiah 53, where his soul is poured out as a ransom for many. We like sheep had gone astray, everyone to his own ways, but God had mercy on us. Like sheep, the sons of Zebedee, they're straying into the Gentile kind of life, in the Gentile pattern of life, self-serving life. Straying sheep, like the sons of Zebedee, like you and me, are brought back into the fold of God to live a life of sacrifice, a life of service. What is the sovereign purpose of God in all this? The sovereign purpose of God in all this, through the gospel, God is creating a community who shock the world as they live out the Jesus kind of life. God is creating a community of servants who seek not for themselves, but who seek to serve and be a servant to all. These are easily said than done. Let's check our value system this evening. Christ is a redeeming sacrifice. He went through all that for our sake, in our stead, as a substitute. He took the wrath of God. As we approach the days that remind us more of this death and resurrection of Jesus, what is the value system of our life. Are we driven by gospel values, or are we driven by earthly values? Let's just close our eyes. I know the time has gone too far.